In the vibrant yet deeply traditional city of Dubai, a marriage built on love and trust unraveled into a shocking tragedy that gripped the nation. The case of 32-year-old Rami Al-Fari and his wife, 30-year-old Layla Hassan, became the subject of intense scrutiny when an unexpected revelation led to a fatal confrontation in late 2020. At first glance, Rami and Layla were the picture of a successful couple. Rami, a respected financial consultant at a major investment firm, had built a stable life through years of dedication and hard work. Layla, known for her beauty and grace, ran an upscale boutique catering to Dubai's elite, exuding confidence and charm. They met in 2017 at a high-profile corporate event, and their connection was instant. Within a year, Rami proposed, eager to start a family with the woman he believed was his soulmate. Their wedding was a grand affair, attended by influential businessmen and prominent figures in their community. Though Rami's conservative family initially harbored reservations about Layla's background, she was an orphan with little-known family history. His love for her overpowered any doubts. For 2 years, their marriage appeared flawless. Layla played the role of a devoted wife, and Rami took pride in providing her with a luxurious life. Yet, beneath the surface, Layla harbored a secret she had buried for years. Born as Lath Hassan, she had undergone gender reassignment surgery in her early 20s after leaving her home country, determined to start anew. She had legally changed her identity and severed all ties with anyone who had known her past. The transformation was seamless. Her appearance, mannerisms, and medical treatments made her transition undetectable to those unaware of her history. Layla never intended to deceive Rami out of malice. She feared rejection, judgment, and possibly even violence. Despite Dubai's modernity, it remained bound by strict cultural and religious norms. She convinced herself that the past was irrelevant, that she was truly the woman she had become. However, secrets, no matter how deeply buried, have a way of surfacing. A single unforeseen event, one that neither Layla nor Rami could have anticipated, would set off a chain reaction. Rami's discovery of Layla's past did not just shatter the foundation of their marriage. It ignited a whirlwind of emotions, shock, anger, and betrayal. In a society where honor and identity hold immense significance, his reaction would be swift, brutal, and irreversible. This is the story of how love, secrecy, and the weight of societal expectations converged in a moment of uncontrollable rage, leading to a crime that would shake the foundations of an entire community. For 2 years, Rami Al-Fari and Layla Hassan lived what appeared to be a blissful marriage in their luxurious apartment overlooking the Dubai Marina. Rami, a man of routine, left for work every morning at precisely 7:45 a.m. and returned home by 5 p.m., always greeted by Layla's warm smile and carefully prepared dinner. Their life was structured, predictable, and seemingly perfect, but perfection is often an illusion. The first crack in their marriage appeared in the summer of 2021. Rami had always wanted children, and after 2 years of marriage without Layla conceiving, he gently suggested they visit a fertility specialist. Layla hesitated but agreed, hoping to find a way to avoid the appointment. A few days before their scheduled consultation, she feigned an illness and convinced Rami to postpone the visit. But he remained persistent, rescheduling it for the following month. As weeks passed, Layla grew increasingly anxious. She knew the medical examination would expose her past, and she couldn't risk it. She searched for excuses, alternative treatments, anything to prevent the inevitable. But Rami, unaware of her turmoil, continued to push for answers. Then came the moment that changed everything. One evening, while Layla was out running errands, Rami received a phone call from an old acquaintance, a man he hadn't spoken to in years. The conversation started casually, but took an unexpected turn when the man mentioned something strange. "I didn't know you married Lath Hassan." Rami frowned. "Who?" "Lath Hassan. We used to work together in Beirut years ago, but I guess you know that. Or maybe you don't." The silence on the other end of the line stretched uncomfortably. The man hesitated before adding, "Rami, listen. You should look into it. I don't mean to stir trouble, but something doesn't add up." Confused and unsettled, Rami ended the call, his mind racing. He had never heard that name before. He immediately searched online, but nothing about Alath Hassan appeared. Still, the unease lingered. That night, Rami's behavior shifted. He watched Layla more closely, noticing small details he had previously ignored: her reluctance to discuss her childhood, the lack of family photos, the way she subtly deflected conversations about her past. Suspicion took root in his mind. Determined to uncover the truth, he decided to take matters into his own hands. The next day, while Layla was asleep, Rami accessed her documents. Most of them seemed normal. Her passport, national ID, and bank details were all in order. But then, tucked away in an old file, he found something strange: a medical record from a clinic in Thailand dated nearly a decade ago. A decade ago. The words on the document made his blood run cold. Gender reassignment surgery, complete transition. For a moment, Rami couldn't breathe. His hands trembled as he reread the file, his mind struggling to comprehend the truth. His wife, the woman he had loved, the woman he had married, had been born a man. Shock turned to anger, and betrayal burned in his chest like fire. Everything he had believed about his marriage was a lie. He had been deceived, manipulated, made a fool of in a society where honor and masculinity were everything. When Lena woke up that morning, she had no idea that her husband had just discovered the secret she had fought so hard to bury. And soon, it would cost her everything. The morning after Rami Al-Ferry discovered the truth, the atmosphere in their luxurious apartment was suffocating. Lena noticed it immediately: the cold distance in Rami's gaze, the way his jaw remained clenched, his silence heavier than usual. She sensed something was wrong, but she had no idea that her world was on the verge of collapsing. Rami left for work without a word, but he never made it to the office. Instead, he spent hours driving aimlessly through Dubai, his mind consumed by rage and humiliation. The betrayal gnawed at him like a wound that refused to close. He couldn't escape the voices in his head, mocking him, accusing him of being blind, of being deceived by the person he had trusted most. In his mind, Lena had not just lied to him, she had robbed him of his dignity, his masculinity, and his honor. By late afternoon, Rami returned home, his mind made up. He needed answers. He needed to confront her. Lena was in the kitchen when he walked in. She turned, smiling softly, but the moment their eyes met, her expression faltered. There was something in Rami's stare that sent a chill down her spine. Something dark. Something she had never seen before. "What's wrong?" she asked cautiously. Rami placed a folder on the table. "Open it." Her hands trembled as she reached for it. The moment she saw the medical record, her heart stopped. Panic surged through her veins. She looked up at Rami, her lips parting to speak, to explain, but the fury in his eyes froze her in place. "You lied to me." Rami's voice was low, dangerous. "For 2 years, you let me believe I was your husband. You let me believe we would have a family." He took a step closer. "You made a fool out of me." Lena's breath hitched. "Rami, please, I wanted to tell you, but I was afraid. I love you. I never meant to hurt you." "Love?" He laughed bitterly, his hands shaking. "Was this your idea of love? A lie so deep that it turned my entire life into a joke?" Lena's eyes welled with tears. "I was scared. I didn't know how to tell you. I thought you would understand." But Rami didn't want to understand. He didn't want to hear excuses. His world had shattered, and Lena was the one responsible. Rage overtook him. The betrayal, the humiliation, the sheer disbelief, it all erupted in a violent outburst. Before he could stop himself, he struck her. Lena stumbled back, gasping in pain. But Rami wasn't done. Years of trust, love, and marriage disintegrated in an instant, replaced by uncontrollable fury. Lena tried to run, but Rami was faster. He grabbed her by the wrist, dragging her back. Desperate, she struggled, pleading, crying, but his anger drowned out her words. The next moments unfolded in a blur. his hands tightening around her throat, her gasps turning into choked cries, her fingers clawing at his arms, trying to break free. Then, silence. Lena's body went limp. Rami released his grip, stepping back in shock as she collapsed onto the marble floor. His chest heaved, his mind struggling to process what he had just done. He hadn't meant to go this far. He hadn't meant to. A soft, choking sound snapped him back to reality. Lena was still alive, barely conscious, her eyes filled with terror. For a split second, regret flickered in Rami's mind. But then he thought about everything, about how she had lied, about how his reputation would be destroyed if people found out. And so, he made his final decision. Reaching for the silk scarf Lena had left on the counter, he wrapped it around her neck and pulled tight. This time, there was no hesitation. No mercy. No love. By the time Rami let go, the woman he had once cherished was gone. The perfect marriage, the perfect love story, had ended in blood. And now, there was no turning back. The body of Lena Hassan was discovered the following morning when the building's housekeeping staff knocked on the door for scheduled cleaning. After receiving no response, they alerted the building security, who used a master key to enter the apartment. What they found sent shockwaves through the luxury residence. Lena lay lifeless on the pristine marble floor of the living room, a silk scarf still loosely wrapped around her neck. A shattered glass of water lay nearby, its contents dried into the tile. The apartment itself was eerily untouched. No signs of forced entry, no signs of a struggle beyond a few overturned chairs. It was as if time had frozen at the moment of her death. Dubai police were quick to arrive. Given the city's stringent law enforcement and advanced forensic capabilities, they treated the scene with calculated precision. The first responding officers secured the apartment while forensic specialists combed through the evidence. Initial observations suggested strangulation as the cause of death, but they needed more proof to confirm it. Security footage from the building's cameras provided chilling insight. Rami Al-Fari had left the apartment in a hurry the night before, his movements tense and erratic. He had not returned since. This revelation sent investigators on an urgent manhunt. A man with no prior criminal history, a man respected in his community, had now become the prime suspect in one of Dubai's most shocking crimes. But where had Rami gone? And did he have a plan? Or was he simply running from the inescapable truth? The cause of death was clear, but what stood out was the calculated nature of the crime. There was no excessive violence, no random chaos. This was personal. The first question investigators needed to answer was simple. Where was Rami Al-Fari? The answer came soon after. Security footage from the apartment complex showed Rami leaving the building late at night, hours after the estimated time of Lena's death. He had been alone, his pace steady but tense. He was carrying nothing, his expression unreadable. Further tracking showed his car leaving the premises, but then he disappeared. His phone was switched off, his bank cards unused. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. By midday, the case had made headlines across Dubai. Wife of prominent financial consultant found dead in Marina apartment. Social media exploded with speculation, though details remained scarce. Was it a robbery? A lover's quarrel? Or something much darker? Detective Asim, an experienced officer with the Dubai Criminal Investigation Department, was assigned to the case. Known for his methodical approach and ability to see beyond the surface, he quickly ruled out robbery. Nothing was missing. Jewelry, cash, valuables, all untouched. Instead, the absence of forced entry and the intimate nature of the crime pointed to one obvious suspect, the husband. A deeper dive into Lena and Rami's lives began. Friends and acquaintances described them as the perfect couple. Yet, a pattern emerged. Rami had been acting strangely in the days leading up to Lena's death. A close friend of Lena's, a boutique owner named Ria, came forward with chilling details. Lena was worried about something, Ria revealed. She didn't say much, but she told me Rami had been distant. She said she was afraid he had found out something about her past. That was the first real lead. Investigators dug deeper into Lena's history and made a startling discovery. Her records before 2013 were practically non-existent. No childhood school records, no family background, no medical history from her early years. It was as if her life had started from scratch a decade ago. Then, the breakthrough came. A medical document carefully hidden in Lena's personal file surfaced. A record from a clinic in Thailand confirmed her gender reassignment surgery. This changed everything. Detective Asim now had a clear motive. Rami had discovered Lena's secret, confronted her, and in a fit of rage, killed her. But knowing the truth and proving it were two different matters. The search for Rami intensified. Airports, border crossings, and hotels were all monitored. His car was found abandoned near the desert outskirts, leading police to suspect he was attempting to flee the country. The pressure mounted. Rami was running out of options, and soon there would be nowhere left to hide. 3 days after Lena Malik's murder, the Dubai police intensified their search for Rami al-Fari. His car had been abandoned near the Aludra Desert, suggesting he was either hiding in the outskirts of the city or attempting to flee across the border. Despite extensive surveillance at all exit points, he was nowhere to be found. Detective Asim, now fully convinced of Rami's guilt, pushed deeper into the couple's past. Lena's hidden medical history had already provided the likely motive, but he needed more, something irrefutable that would link Rami directly to the crime. Then, a key witness came forward. A hotel receptionist in Sharjah reported a suspicious guest who had checked in under a false name the night after the murder. Security footage confirmed it. Rami had taken refuge in the hotel for nearly 24 hours before disappearing again. What was even more telling was what he left behind in the room. A discarded mobile phone with deleted messages, a half-written note, and a small envelope containing cash. Forensic specialists quickly recovered fragments of the deleted messages, which revealed something unexpected. Rami had reached out to a lawyer. The text read, "I need legal counsel. I didn't plan for this to happen." It got out of control. This changed the case entirely. It suggested that Rami hadn't premeditated the murder, but had acted in the heat of the moment. Still, it didn't absolve him. Lena was dead, and the evidence was mounting against him. The half-written note found in the hotel room was even more disturbing. It was addressed to his younger brother, Phil. "I lost everything in one night. I don't know how to face the world now. I don't know if I can live with this. Please tell Mother I am sorry." This wasn't just the letter of a fugitive. It was the letter of a man contemplating ending his own life. Meanwhile, detectives uncovered another shocking detail. Rami had confronted Lena's past employer in Beirut months before the murder. Records showed that he had traveled to Lebanon briefly in early 2021, where he had met with a former acquaintance of Lena's, a man who had known her before her transition. This suggested that Rami might have suspected the truth long before he officially discovered the medical records. Had he been wrestling with this knowledge in silence for months? Had the confrontation that night merely been the tipping point? Finally, they got the break they needed. Surveillance cameras from a gas station near the Oman border picked up Rami's face. He had cut his hair, changed clothes, and was traveling alone. But there was no mistaking it. It was him. The hunt was nearing its conclusion. Rami was running, but he couldn't run forever. The moment Rami al-Fari's face appeared on border surveillance footage, Dubai authorities acted swiftly. Coordination with Omani security forces was immediate, and road checkpoints were set up along potential escape routes. The fugitive, once a respected financial consultant in the city, was now a man on the run with nowhere left to hide. Detective Asim had anticipated this. Rami was desperate, but he wasn't a seasoned criminal. He had no underground contacts, no experience in evading law enforcement. His every move was dictated by fear, not strategy. All the investigators needed to do was corner him. Tracking his route, they discovered he had abandoned a rental car near the H border. This meant one thing: he was traveling on foot in the searing desert heat with limited resources. Rami's chances of survival were dwindling. A man accustomed to luxury was now reduced to hiding in the barren landscapes of the Middle East. The final confrontation came at sunrise. For days after the murder, a joint task force from Dubai and Omani police had spotted movement near a rocky outcrop along the border. Drones had detected a lone figure stumbling through the terrain, exhausted, dehydrated, and disoriented. When officers surrounded him, Rami didn't resist. He didn't even run. He simply sank to his knees, his body weakened from days of exposure. His lips were dry, his eyes hollow, as if the weight of his crime had drained the life out of him. As Detective Asim approached, Rami finally spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "Is she really gone?" Asim stared at the broken man before him. "You know the answer to that," Rami exhaled shakily, lowering his head. "I didn't mean for it to happen like this." "Then why did you do it?" Silence stretched between them. Then Rami muttered, "Because I didn't know how else to feel. No anger, no defiance, just emptiness." The officer secured his wrists with handcuffs, and as Rami was led away, he didn't struggle. The man who had once controlled millions in investments, who had lived in one of Dubai's most prestigious districts, was now a prisoner. As the convoy drove him back toward the city, Rami looked out at the endless desert. There was no escape now, only the cold reality of what he had done. The trial of Rami Al-Fari became one of the most talked about cases in the UAE. The media followed every development, from his capture at the Oman border to his first court appearance. Public opinion was divided. Some saw him as a man pushed to the edge by betrayal, while others viewed him as nothing more than a murderer who had taken the life of his innocent wife. Inside the courtroom, the evidence was overwhelming. The prosecution presented forensic findings, surveillance footage, and digital records proving Rami had discovered Lena's past before the murder. The medical document found in their apartment, the deleted text messages to his lawyer, and his attempt to flee painted a clear picture of his guilt. Rami's defense team attempted to argue that he had acted in a state of emotional distress, claiming that his discovery of Lena's past had caused a psychological breakdown. They pushed for a reduced sentence, citing lack of premeditation and temporary insanity. However, the court rejected this argument. The prosecution countered that, while the murder might not have been premeditated for weeks, Rami had more than enough time, after discovering the truth, to leave, seek legal action, or handle the situation without resorting to violence.